Hello my little pen pushers. So today I'm going to show you how to write two words that I really struggled with writing when I started learning calligraphy, but one that you will inevitably write lots and lots and lots if you want to be a professional calligrapher. And those words are bride and groom. At the beginning of my calligraphy journey, I found these words quite difficult to write. I just couldn't get it to look right. It never looked professional enough. And you know when you're writing wedding calligraphy, especially for couples, that you want to make it perfect. So to start off, we're just going to do some practice. To do this, just get your little ruler and get a HB pencil and just mock up some base lines so you know what to do. The biggest mistake that I made when I was learning calligraphy, or the biggest thing that I was ignorant of, is using a pencil to help you write. Okay, so use a pencil, HB pencil, mechanical pencil, and you can use white mechanical pencils if you're working on darker surfaces. But let's mock up the word bride. Now, there's a couple ways to write bride, obviously lowercase b or uppercase b. But for today, we will work with a lowercase b. So we're going to start off with our ascender loop. So our ascender loop looks like this, up and down. Okay, so we're going to start with this. And then we're going to add this little stroke, okay, for our B. You can also do this down and bring it up and write like this. But I tend to like this B at the moment, which tends to look like this. This is my style at the moment, okay? So we're going to go ascender loop, down. We're going to do our B with our exit stroke there, our connector stroke. And now with an R, again, we can either have our R's like this, or we can have them like this. So I tend to like the second type of R at the moment, so we can do that. Okay, and be really aware of the spacing between your letters as you write this. I. We're going to do our D, so we'll do our oval. And you can either have a loop or you can have it straight. So let's have a straight version for now. And then we're going to do our E. Okay, so that's one way to write bride. Another way would be to do it like this. You can bring this down below the baseline. We can do another loop here. Small I to make it bouncier. Let's do our oval. Let's just have like a little entrance stroke here for our ascender loop. Up and down. And then let's have our exit. Make it quite long. There's two ways that you can write bride. Now, what I would do, or I did do in fact, until I was confident enough to write this without the pencil, is I would get my nib and ink, make sure that you scrape off any excess ink, and you have your little scratch sheet, so scrape off any excess ink here, and take your time and trace over it. Now when you trace over it, you write as slowly as you write in pencil, so take your time, so take brief breaths, think about your posture, up, over, down. Now, I never worry if I miss parts of the tracing. It doesn't bother me. And terminal dots, there's two ways to do it. You can either do your little circle, making sure this is no wider than your eye. I'll show you the next terminal dot in a minute. You can apply even more pressure if you want. Now at this point I'm just going to load up my nib with ink again because I know it's going to run out. It'd be really annoying if it runs out halfway through this letter. So down, and then, you know, just before you do it, just make sure you're aware of where the stroke needs to go, because the last thing we do is mess up this beautiful word. Making sure you're moving your arm and not just your fingers. There, okay, and then the terminal dots is just a little pressure flick, which is my preference to do. And then when this is done, depending on what ink you're using, if you're using a Sumi ink, leave it a good 24 hours. I would use like a really soft rubber and rub out the letters in pencil. And then we're going to do the same with the word groom. So the groom, we can either have a nice little entrance stroke to our G, oval, ascender loop, descender loop, sorry, And you can bring this all the way along like that. So kind of, I like how it tucks under the letters. It keeps it all nice and cozy. Now we're going to do a little fancy R. I do like to keep my vowels a little bit smaller if I can. And then your M will have a little exit like this. Okay, and another way we can write that, we can have a really long entrance stroke. That's a bit more like a compound curve. Do our G. Again, I'm going to bring this down. So I do love how this looks. We're going to do not so much of a loopy R. Do some O's. Do a loop up here to connect. Up here as well. M. And we're going to bring this up. So that's another beautiful way to write the word groom. Again, get our nib loaded with our ink. Do your little scratch sheet. Okay, and just take your time. So all your hairlines, all of these strokes want to be nice and light. So you want a real difference between thick and thin. Make sure you have your paper the right way around. Look at the tapering of your stroke. So it's not just thick, it goes thin, thick, thin. You can bring this below the baseline, up over the top. And take your time, because if you do make mistakes, you can correct them quite easily. And there we go. Wouldn't worry about that too much. And now we've got the bigger one. So you can add more pressure if you wanted to make the lettering quite thick. This is really good if you're going to scan it in for wedding stationery. You can see how I'm moving my arm around. I wouldn't be able to create these strokes if I didn't move my arm around. Oops. Be careful when you're going through loops of this where the ink is quite thick, because you don't want to drag the ink through. So stop there and start and reconnect here. Okay, take your time. Think about what you're doing. Reload your ink regularly if you're putting a lot of pressure on it. Now here, I know that I'm going to go up and down, and it's going to be one continuous movement. So I want to make sure that my hand hasn't got anything stopping me. It's going to be a nice and smooth transition between these strokes. And there you go. It's gone a bit over, but I'm happy with that. It looks nice and defined and tidy. And again, once this dries, we'll rub it off and we'll see how it looks. So I hope you enjoyed that. Again, I'm going to post this on my website so you can download this as a template and use in your own time. But hopefully that will really help you when you're writing those two words.